The Biden administration is taking a different tact. They see the crisis happening on the border and they're saying, we need more detentions. And they are now floating the idea to open or reopen a migrant detention camp in Guantánamo. That's right. The Biden administration is now in the ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, is inviting tenders, so inviting bids for private contractors to run the Migrant Operations Center on the US naval base close to the prison compounds housing the remaining 39 detainees held in the war on terror. Okay, so this is a facility that not a lot of people know about, but it's been in existence. The little known immigrant holding facility on the base has a capacity of 120 people, the records say, and it will have an estimated daily population of 20 people, according to the solicitation bids issued Friday by DHS. According to the solicitation, formal bidding is expected to take place later this fall. Okay, so 120 people, that's the capacity. Think about that a little bit, and then look at the number of migrants on the US-Mexico border. How are we doing that? Well, there's more, because there's a sort of history here with this detention center. So the service provider, this is from the contract, the open bids, shall be responsible to maintain on site the necessary equipment to erect temporary housing facilities for a population that exceeds 120 and up to 400 migrants in a surge event. Okay, that's still not probably the numbers, even if you were to do something like this that could house migrants that are currently coming in. The reason that I'm relating it to the Haitian migrant crisis on the border right now is because it appears like that's what the Biden administration is also thinking, because in this solicitation, it adds at least 10% of the augmented personnel must be fluent in Spanish and Haitian Creole. Air transportation to and from the facility is also the sole responsibility of the service provider. Anyone imagine that Eric Prince will not swoop in right now with his $6,000 flights and be like, hey, anybody want to get over to Guantánamo? Caroline, thoughts on housing migrants fleeing Haiti at the naval base of Guantánamo?
Yeah, it's so shocking and horrifying, and it's really fascinating too that the journalists who uncovered this story were able to do so because of that very brief hint of that the enforcers, if you will, need to speak Haitian Creole, which is a dead giveaway that is exactly what is going to happen with these individuals at the border. And then of course, a member of the Trump administration came out and said, "Oh, it's this specific part of Guantánamo. It's a different area. It is a migrant holding cell. We are not going to the prison." It doesn't matter. Guantánamo Bay is a symbol of America's tyranny, frankly, across the world, and the horrible conditions that we subject human beings to, regardless of their background. It's been promised to be closed for so long. And the fact that it is now being used by the administration that won this election because of the hard work of a lot of activists and organizers who, wouldn't allow Trump to be reelected for the main issue of his border policies. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that this administration is, it doesn't matter that it's a separate holding cell. The symbolism of Guantánamo Bay is, it basically just displays the failures of American foreign policy just right out there. And it's really sad and shocking. And I'm very grateful to the reporters who were able to take that little nugget of information and just say, like, this is what's happening.
Yeah, and for context, this is not the first time that migrants seeking refuge in the United States have been held at Guantánamo. So let's just talk about it. The migrant camp was first set up in 1991 and was intended to hold Cuban asylum seekers. Ultimately, it was used to detain about 34,000 Haitians and roughly the same number of Cubans until it was wound down by the Obama administration, and it has not been used to hold migrants since 2017. Okay, so I just under George H.W. Bush in 91 to 93, Haitians sought to flee the country to seek asylum in Florida, and 12,000 were sent to Guantánamo Bay. So there's varying numbers, but apparently, yes, under William Barr, none other than fascist Barney Rubble oversaw that program. Now, I'm just stunned by the numbers because none of it's adding up, right? Like, I don't understand how, and I think we all know the answer, how facilities that are meant for something like 120 people or 400 at most people could be holding 12,000, 30,000 migrants. And that's because it's just overcrowding, right? That's because, we don't treat migrants like they're human beings. Problem solved. We overcrowd jails. We overcrowd jails for American citizens as well in this country all the time. The DHS is saying, however, that despite this reporting, despite their letter soliciting, saying, hey, highest bidder and or best bidder or whomever, please open this facility once again, DHS is saying it is not sending and will not send Haitian nationals being encountered at the southwest border to the Migrant Operations Center in Guantánamo Bay. The MOC has not been used for decades to process migrants interdicted at sea for third country resettlement. The request for information recently posted is a typical routine step in a contract renewal and unrelated to the southwest border. Okay, so if it's unrelated, then bro, bad timing, dude. Like, why are you doing this now, DHS? Like, why? Or ICE, it's like, and once again, if ICE, who's asking for this renewal, which is under the head of DHS, which is under the head of the Biden administration, like, are we not talking to one another? Could it be once again that ICE is out of control? Are they operating on their own? Is CBP and ICE, should they maybe be dismantled? Yeah, I mean, that's my personal opinion, but hey, I'm just here to report the news, buddy, you know what I'm saying? I don't have opinions, no, but it is, I think it is a question, obviously, of like, what does happen, right? That I think, everyone from, the far right to all folks who are like, well, how should we treat and what should we do with the, thousands of migrants seeking refuge? And I think for me, the answer is always, hey, treat them like they're human. If you start from a place of the fact that they're human, then you won't chase them down with whips. Then you won't deport them en masse to a country that is falling apart. There may, in fact, be detention, but you won't hold them there for months and months on end. You won't separate them from their families. You allow them to be processed. You allow them to go into the United States. And then there are many ways of tracking people who come to the United States who have asylum cases, right? You staff up when it comes to the immigration courts that are overrun, that are totally, they're overrun because the number of migrants, they're overrun because they're underfunded, right? You got CBP getting all the funds, and yet the actual courts that are processing asylum claims, I mean, they basically all admit that they are over their heads. Final thoughts, Caroline, on this?
I just think what you said about treating people like human beings needs to be restated, put on billboards, just across the country. I think, and this is a big issue we also see with how people in the country treat unhoused populations of American citizens, of veterans. It really is a shocking twist in your thinking when you finally say, hey, look, that person on the street or that person being whipped by a border patrol agent has, is a sentient being and has just as many feelings and emotions and family members and loved ones as I do. When we make that shift in perspective, and it's truly revolutionary. It really is. And I think that's why images like this are so powerful coming out of the border, is because it's the rare case where we can actually see the brutality of, decades of administrations that we just haven't seen before.
Yeah.
And it's really tragic that it has to be these awful images that, no one wants to see. But we have to recognize that you have to start from a place of recognizing a common humanity. Nationality, ethnicity is all secondary to those things if you don't have just a general underlying belief that, human beings can experience pain and need supportive community. Yeah. So I think that's a super important point, and one that transcends into so many issues that we're dealing with in America as well on a policy level. And it's just gonna get worse. I mean, globally, this story, what we need to do is just gonna get harder and harder to do.
100%, yeah. We need to decriminalize the border also. That's the main thing. Stop treating people who cross the border as criminals. It's not a criminal act to cross the border, sorry.
No.
All right,
yeah,
we gotta
just
take
quickly, the Biden administration said in their own words that Haiti is a country on the brink of collapse. So anyone, Dan Crenshaw the other day was saying that asylum seekers are faking their need for asylum. So anyway, just saying, by the administration's own definition, Haiti needs our help.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.